Hi guys, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into this really fascinating intersection between our brain chemistry and our everyday social media habits. We're going to be looking at the anatomy of a habit, specifically focusing on Instagram, dopamine, and how this whole system ultimately impacts our overall life satisfaction. So if you've ever found yourself just completely lost in a feed and wondered, wait, why did I just do that? Well, you're absolutely in the right place today. So let's just dive right into it and ask the fundamental question we've all probably pondered while staring at our screens. Why on earth can't we stop scrolling? I mean, we've all been there, right? You open the app just to check one quick message and suddenly, poof, 30 minutes have completely vanished. But today, we're not just going to blame this on a lack of willpower. Instead, we're going to look at the hard science, the actual psychology and neurology behind this totally modern phenomenon.
To do that, we'll be covering 5 main areas today: the validation economy, dopamine and brain chemistry, the fear of missing out, the impact on life satisfaction, and finally, the path forward.
All right, let's jump into Section 1, the validation economy.
With over 1 billion monthly users, Instagram is literally so much more than just an app. It's really this massive, interactive, psychological environment. It's one of the most influential platforms on the planet, especially for young adults. And think about what it actually is. It's this highly image-centric space, totally driven by complex algorithms that have one primary goal: continuous engagement. For a lot of us, it isn't really just a tool for communication anymore. It's morphed into this central space for building our identities, and honestly, for pretty intense self-evaluation.
And this shift is super interesting. We've basically moved from traditional interactions, which, are usually limited, a bit delayed, and heavily dependent on context, to Instagram interactions, which are instantaneous, totally quantifiable, and just continuous. Think about it for a second. In the real world, someone might compliment your outfit, and that's a nice, fleeting moment, right? It happens, and then it's over. But on Instagram, that validation becomes numerical. It's out there in public. Things like likes, comments, views, and follower counts act as these constant psychological stimuli. The whole architecture of the platform makes sure you're repeatedly exposed to these metrics, essentially institutionalizing how we measure social approval. It's like you can check your social score at literally any given moment of the day.
Which brings us right to Section 2, dopamine and brain chemistry.
Research actually shows this operates as a highly tuned neuropsychological conditioning system. Here's how it works. First, you post your content. You're putting a little piece of your identity out there into the world. Second, you anticipate the reward. Now, this anticipation phase is absolutely key. It actually spikes your dopamine before you even get a single like. Third, you receive the metric, like a heart or a little comment. And finally, fourth, you get that big dopamine hit. This whole cycle is just incredibly powerful. The anticipation alone sustains your engagement. And because the algorithm is unpredictable, you never quite know exactly how many likes you're going to get. It keeps you coming back to pull the lever again and again. It's exactly like a slot machine, perfectly mimicking classic behavioral addiction patterns.
In fact, during qualitative interviews for a comprehensive study on Instagram use, highly engaged users didn't just call the platform fun. They used phrases like emotionally addictive, mentally exhausting, and, quite tellingly, a constant test of self-worth. When your sense of social approval gets tied up in this variable, totally unpredictable algorithm, it leaves you incredibly emotionally vulnerable. You essentially start losing autonomy over your own emotional regulation because, well, you're outsourcing it to a screen.
So the really crucial takeaway here is that over time, this repeated exposure actually converts our inner emotional experience into performance-based self-worth. Validation becomes a measurable achievement. It's no longer just about feeling accepted by your friends or your community. It becomes about hitting a specific numerical target just to feel valuable. And honestly, this shift right here is the absolute core driver of that compulsive engagement we see on the platform. Moving right along, let's look at Section 3, the fear of missing out.
Now, the fear of missing out, or FOMO, is officially defined as the fear that others might be having pleasing experiences which one is missing. This is a cognitive bias that's probably been around since the dawn of humanity, right? But man, is it supercharged by Instagram's image-driven nature. Because the platform highly encourages sharing these mostly positive, idealized, and, let's be real, heavily filtered moments of our lives, you're constantly being bombarded with this relentless highlight reel of everyone else's existence.
I want you to think of FOMO as a sort of psychological toll booth, sitting right between the physical act of scrolling on your phone and your ultimate emotional state. It acts as the bridge connecting your action to your feeling. It's literally the mechanism that translates your screen time into emotion.
It amplifies social comparison, making you constantly weigh your messy, real life against someone else's perfectly curated reality. And ultimately, it significantly increases psychological distress, because it's not just that you're seeing a cool picture of a vacation or a party, it's that internalized dread creeping in, telling you that you're somehow being left behind, excluded, or that your life just simply doesn't measure up.
Let's see how this plays out in Section 4, Impact on Life Satisfaction.
Okay, this part is fascinating. A study of young adults done by the University of Twente actually found no direct link between simply using Instagram and having lower life satisfaction. So does just using the app directly ruin your life satisfaction? The data says no. Some people use it heavily and they are perfectly happy. But does FOMO directly link to lower life satisfaction? That is a resounding yes. The researchers found a really significant negative correlation here, meaning folks who experience less FOMO naturally tend to be way more satisfied with their actual lives. So what exactly is the connection here between the app, the feeling of FOMO, and our overall happiness?
Well, instead of a direct A to B link, the researchers hypothesized what's called a mediation model. They suggested that your Instagram use only impacts your life satisfaction if it travels through the psychological variable of FOMO. In plain English, just being on the app doesn't automatically make you unhappy. It depends entirely on whether or not the app is triggering that deep-seated fear of missing out within you.
And guess what? Their statistical analysis confirmed this brilliantly. FOMO is indeed the mediator. It acts as this invisible translation layer that turns your Instagram use into a decrease in overall happiness. Having continuous access to idealized information about everyone else's lives triggers what psychologists call upward social comparison. That comparison breeds FOMO, and then that FOMO just slowly chips away at your satisfaction with your own life. It's this completely fascinating, proven psychological chain reaction. Basically, if you can use the app without a triggering FOMO, your life satisfaction stays largely intact. But the moment the app starts triggering that fear, your well-being takes a very real, measurable hit.
Which leads us to our final section, Section 5, the path forward.
So, what should we really take away from all this dense neuroscience and psychology? How do we actually apply this data to our everyday lives? Well, understanding the hidden machinery of our own habits is absolutely the critical first step toward reclaiming some autonomy over our digital lives and our mental well-being. Let's quickly recap our key takeaways. First, we have to recognize that Instagram naturally exploits our dopamine-based reward systems. It's literally built from the ground up to keep you scrolling. Second, be super aware that social validation has morphed into a quantifiable metric, and that is just a really dangerous way to measure your own self-worth. Third, always remember that FOMO is the crucial mediator for life satisfaction. It is the feeling, not the app itself, that's draining your happiness. And finally, awareness is your best friend here. It's the very first step to emotional regulation because honestly, you can't fix a habit if you don't understand how it works. I'm going to leave you to reflect on your own habits with this one final thought as we wrap up today's explainer. Are you scrolling for genuine connection, or are you really just chasing validation? Honestly, recognizing the difference might just be the key to taking back your time and your peace of mind. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe.